apologize for that box that keeps popping up. Now, let's read the question. Write a program that will allow a manager to determine and display the total sales for the department. Simple enough. We know we got to write a program, right? Now, the manager will enter the sales goal for the month. Well, okay, we can already write a line of code, can't we? The manager will enter the sales goal for the month, okay? So we want some input. So let's say sales goal equals, we'll say input, and we'll prompt the user. Please enter the sales goal. Now, what I like to do when I'm working with money is I like to typecast to a float, okay? All right. So we have the sales goal. Let's continue reading the problem now. Then the manager will enter, so more input, the sales for each salesperson for 4 weeks. So that means salesperson 1. We need to be able to put week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then move to salesperson 2. And then go through week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And we can do that by using a for loop, okay? So that's going to be a specified amount of loops. We want to use a for loop for that versus a while loop. So what I would say is something like this. For I, and we'll say for I in range, and we'll do 4. Now, I is a little bit overused. Perhaps we'd say day, right? Because each number is going to represent a day. And what this is going to do is going to loop 4 times. But keep in mind, it does start from 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3. Now, for each loop, we simply want to get the weekly total for that salesperson. So what we'll do is we'll say weekly, and we'll do weekly total. We'll set that equal to input, and we'll say, please enter the weekly total. All right, and again, I want to typecast this to a float. And now let's just go ahead and run this. We should always run our program. We want to see how it works. So I'm just going to right click and run, and we can see we can enter the sales goal, 5,700, we'll say. And now it's saying, please enter the weekly total. Well, why don't we do 400, and this should run 4 times. So this represents week 1, this represents week 2, week 3, and week 4, and this program should end. And it does, okay? So this will work perfectly. Now, the problem is we need to total these up, right? So we don't really care what the salesperson made in each individual week. We just want to know the total number. So what we can do is we can create another variable to store the total. And what we would do is just start off with 0, okay? So we'll say total equals 0. Now, I want this to be above the for loop, because if it's in the for loop, every single time the loop starts, what happens to total? It actually gets set back to 0. So it gets reassigned to 0 every single time, or actually assigned to 0 every time. We don't want that, so we make sure it's outside of the loop, okay? Actually, it needs to be above so we have access to it. Now, what we'll do is something simple. We'll just add that weekly total to the total. So we'll say total, and we want to increment it, okay? So we'll say total plus equals, and then we'll say weekly total. Now, the plus equals allows us to increment it. Otherwise, if we just have an equal sign, that's not going to increment. It's literally just going to reassign total every single loop. We don't want that. So we use the plus sign, okay? Now, let's go ahead and print the total and see if this is working. Okay, so we'll enter the sales goal, which is 5,700. We'll say 400, 500, 600, 700. And look what we have here. This is working perfectly. Now, there's a problem, okay? What's the problem? Well, I can only do this process once. So how can I continue to repeat this process until the sales manager says, well, there is no more employees. There's no more salespeople to put in a total for. Well, I can actually put this in a while loop, right? So I can say while, and I'm going to actually say while true. Be careful with these, okay? Try to avoid them if you can. But if you don't know the exit condition or the condition, well, then you can use these. They're somewhat hard to avoid, but you should try to at all costs. So I'm going to say while true, okay? And that means everything needs to get tabbed over. Now, I don't need this print anymore because it was just for a quick visual representation to make sure total was working properly. Now, we have while true, and that means this is going to run an infinite number of times. Okay? So if we go up and read the problem again. After each salesperson, the program should ask the manager if there's another. Well, we know that after this for loop runs, well, that means the manager should be prompted. The for loop has done its job, and now we move to the next line of code, and we'll just simply ask. So we'll get input. Let's call this another. Kind of a weird variable, but we'll use it. And that will equal input, and let's prompt the user for something like this. Are there any more sales, let's say salespeople. And why don't we put this? YN colon, okay? And now what we want to do is evaluate this, okay? So if the manager puts in an N, we know that there are no more salespeople, so what should break? The while loop should break, okay? So what we'll say is if another equals N, what we'll do is we'll break. Very simple. Let's make sure this is working. So let's run it. And we'll say the sales goal is 5,700, 400, 500, 600, 700. Now when I hit enter, this for loop has done its job and it should come down to line 32. So I'm going to hit enter here. And there we go. Are there any more salespeople? Now if I hit no, there's the break keyword. That break keyword is going to break the while loop, not the for loop, okay? Because this is not tabbed over into the for loop. This is outside, all right? It's in the while true scope, okay? So let's go ahead and just hit Y, okay? Let's see if this continues. And there we go. This is working. So let's put in another set of numbers. So we'll say 400, 600, 700, 800. And now let's hit no just to see. And there we go. It triggers the break keyword because this condition becomes true, and everything is working properly. Now, there is a problem. How can we keep track of all of the totals? Okay? Now, I think the best way to do this is to utilize a dictionary. All right? So every single time we total up a salesperson, we should put a key and a value in a dictionary. Now, I'm going to show you what that dictionary should look like, but ultimately, it's going to be empty, and we're going to populate it with our code instead. So let's just go ahead and create a mock dictionary. So we'll say sales equals a dictionary, and we'll say the first key and value is just going to be salesperson 1 in their total. So we'll say salesperson 1, and then let's say their total was like 800. Okay, next key and value, salesperson 2, and let's say their total was 1,200. So this is what our dictionary is going to look like. Yep. And we'll do one more. Salesperson 3. And let's say their total was, I don't know, let's say they just had a good week or a good month and they did 3,000. So our dictionary is going to be empty, but it's actually going to get populated with the code, okay, while the code runs. And this is what it's going to kind of look like, all right? But what do we need to do? We need to make sure this is outside of the while loop. Why can't it be in the while loop? Well, first off, total can be in the while loop because after this for loop runs, and then this runs, and the while loop runs again, we want to start with a fresh total again. We want to start from 0. But we don't want our dictionary to start from 0. Otherwise, it will never put the proper amount of salespeople in. It'll just keep putting, I believe, it'll just put like one salesperson in, okay? Actually, it'll become empty every single time, and then, yeah, you'll get one salesperson. So let's go ahead and create that dictionary up here, okay? And let's comment this one out. Okay, and we'll make it empty. Now, after this for loop has done its job, that's when we want to add to the sales dictionary because we want to add the salesperson, and then we want the complete total. So to get the complete total, this must run 4 times, all right? So how do we add a key and value to a dictionary? Very simple. We just say sales, then we use our index operator, okay? And what we'll do here is we're going to actually create an F string. That way each key is unique. Why does each key have to be unique? Well, because you cannot have duplicate keys. It has to look like this. If it just says salesperson, 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 that's duplicate keys, and there will only be literally one key, and it won't work properly, okay? So what we're going to do is create an F string. That way our keys are unique. And we could say this: salesperson, curly brackets. And what can we put here? How can we get the proper number? How can we get salesperson 1? Well, we can use the length of this dictionary, okay? So I would say the len of sales, which is going to be salesperson 0, because this has a 0 length. So what I would do is just add 1, okay? And now I put the value, which we know is going to be the total, which is accumulated after these 4 loops, okay? So let's just say total. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to make this look a little bit nicer too, okay? This input statement. I want to say, please enter. Let's put curly brackets. Let's make this an F string. And we'll say, let's say salesperson. Salesperson. The len, we'll use the same thing. We'll say the len of sales plus 1, okay? And then we won't say weekly, we'll say week. And how can we represent each week? Because we know that this can't represent each week. It's only going to represent each salesperson, okay? The logic isn't correct if we wanted to use this to represent the weeks. But we already have something to represent the week, or the day, I should say. Oh, let's change this to day, okay? So this is going to represent the week. Remember, this is 0 through 3. That's 4 numbers, okay? So what I could just do is do the same thing. I can say week plus 1. Now, let's go ahead and run this. See how it looks. So let's enter the sales goal for 5,700. Please enter the salesperson week 1 total. Okay, we'll just say 500. And then look at here. Please enter the salesperson 1 week 2 total. Let's do 600. Week 3 total. So this is working correctly. Okay, now let's add another salesperson to see if this gets incremented. Now it should. Why should it? Well, because line 32 just ran, which put a key and a value inside of this dictionary. What is the length now? It's no longer 0 plus 1. It is now 1 plus 1. So this should go to salesperson 2. So let's hit yes here. Okay, and there we have it. Salesperson 2, week 1, because this starts over again. Now, let's go ahead and put in 700, 800, 900, and 1,000, or 1,200, sorry. And now we'll just hit no, and nothing else is going to happen, but the main thing is that our logic is working, okay? So let's hit no. All right. Now, this is working, but we need to do something. So let's go up and read the problem. Display the total number of employees in the department and the total sales for the department. Okay? The manager earns a 2% bonus on all sales for the month. If the total department sales exceed the sales goal, then the manager's bonus is 5% of the total sales. So how can we display the total? Let's start off with line 6 here. Display the total number of employees in the department and the total sales for the department. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll create some print statements. Okay, so we want to print, we'll say something like this. Create an F string. The total number of employees, and we'll just put a colon here. And let's put our curly brackets, and we know where the total number is. It's going to be the length of sales. If there's 3 people in sales, that means there's 3 employees. And the len of sales will return 3 for us. So we'll use len of sales again. Okay? Now, that's the total number of the employees. But now we should get the total sales for the department. Okay? So all of the employees combined. This is actually very easy. So if we look at this, right? If we look at this dictionary, the value is an integer, okay? Or a float, okay? So each one is a float. Did I make that a float? Yeah, it's a float. All right. So actually, it's going to be a float in this dictionary, but this dictionary, I put them in as integers. Doesn't matter, okay? We can do basic math on them. So all we have to do is add these values, okay? We don't care about the keys. We don't care about salesperson 1, salesperson 2, salesperson 3. All we care about is the values. How can we get all the values from this dictionary? Well, in my Python beginner course, we go over a method to do that, okay? So we would say, this is just for practice here. We're just going to say, let's say sales 2 for practice. Dot values, okay? Now what I want to do, because I want to get this logic situated, and we know that this logic already works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment it out, okay? And now let's just get this logic working down here. So I'm going to comment that out too, because I know that that works. Now, how do we get the total for all of the employees? Simple. We get the sum of this. So let's print this out just to see what we get. And look, this is working perfectly. It gives us a list with each value in it. And we just get the sum. We just add all of those values together. Let's run it. Works perfect, okay? So what I would do is store that in a variable. We'll say something like this. We'll say total sales equals. Now it's stored in a variable, and I can print that out, or I can display it however I see fit. But we'll do it according to this, okay? So where is it? Total sales for the department. We'll just make something basic. Now, the manager earns a 2% bonus, so we got to calculate the manager's bonus. And that's really simple too, okay? So what we can do is just say, if total sales is greater than the sales goal, right? As long as he met the sales goal. Now this is commented out, so that's why we're gonna get that error. So we'll say sales goal. Well then, what's the bonus? Well, we'll create a variable here. We'll create a variable called bonus, and we'll set it equal to total sales times 0.05. Now, if it's not greater than, well, then they got a 2% bonus. So we'll just say the bonus will equal total sales multiplied by 0.02. Okay? And now we have the bonus. So this is actually complete. What I can do is get rid of this little mock dictionary. So we'll delete that. We'll uncomment all of this. And then I'll change this from sales 2 to sales. Okay? And then let's just go ahead and continue our finishing our displays. Okay? So we want to display the total sales. So what we'll do is we'll bring this up. We'll say print an F string. The total sales for the department is, and then we'll do total sales. Pass total sales in here. Okay. And then what does it want us to do with the manager bonus? Determine and display the sales goal and the manager's bonus amount. Okay. So we'll say print another F string. The sales goal was $. We'll say sales goal. Let's print another F string that says the manager bonus is. And then we'll say bonus. And there we go. Our program is complete. Let's go ahead and run this and see how it works. So we'll enter the sales goal at, let's just put 3,500. Okay. Please enter salesperson week 1 total. So we'll do 200, 300, 800, and 900. We'll do another employee. We'll do 200, 100, 400, and 600. And we'll do a third employee. Okay, so we'll do 400, 600, 250, and 750. We'll say no, there are no more employees or salespeople. And look what we get. The total number of employees was 3. The total sales for the department is 5,500. The sales goal was 35, so it was met. So the manager gets 5% of that, which is 275. So this worked perfectly, okay? Now, one thing you can do, because sometimes these look a little bit weird, you can actually put a colon dot 2F here. And what that will do is it'll put 2 zeros, okay, after the decimal. It looks a little bit nicer when we're dealing with money. So colon dot 2F, and we can do it up here too. Colon dot 2F. Okay, that's the problem. So that's problem 1. It's complete. Just kind of go over it. If you want to practice it, do whatever you want to do, but it's complete, and I will be seeing you guys in the next question, okay, or the next problem. All right, bye. Hello, everybody. I hope you're ready for the next problem because we have it right here in front of us. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, of course, the first thing that we always do is gather requirements or details, and I already have them in front of me, so I'm just going to go off of what these details are right here. Now, it's asking us to write a program that will allow a manager to determine the cost of a vacation. The resort client will be able to book a vacation, dining, and special excursions. The client will enter the room selection and the number of days of the vacation. The room options are this. Okay, so this is pretty simple. I'm thinking already that I'm going to be creating separate functions, okay? A function that deals with room options, a function that deals with meal options, and a function that deals with excursions. And of course, if we look right here, that's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and just quickly breeze through these. So we can see that the room options start from 2 queen beds at $375 a night and go all the way up to $475 a night. Okay, so obviously we want to pay attention to night here because whatever they purchase is going to be multiplied by the number of nights that they're staying, okay? But I don't think it's going to matter how many travelers there are going to be. Okay, so meal options. Now, it's saying 25 per person or 75 per person. What I'm thinking is that we will get the amount of travelers, okay? We'll multiply this per traveler, and then we're probably going to multiply it by the amount of days that they're staying, okay? Unless they're only going to have dinner one night, and the next night they're going to go hungry. I have no idea, but what we'll do is we'll just multiply it by days as well. And now we have excursions, and we can see multiple excursions can be selected. So I'm already thinking in my head, I'm going to probably loop, allow them to pick, and then loop if they want to pick another excursion. So we'll prompt them. Now, if they do, we're going to have to store each one, and I already have a data structure in mind, which is going to be a list. But we'll see when we get to it. So let's go ahead and start by creating the functions, okay? Actually, I don't want to create it here. I'll leave this. And let's also read the rest of this. So the program will display the number of nights of the stay and the room cost, the meal cost, and excursion cost, and then a total, okay? So no problem. Let's start off. Let's go ahead and create our rooms. So we'll say def room cost. And what we'll do is we're going to want to get the amount of nights that they're staying. So we'll allow that to get passed in. Okay, so that's going to be one of our parameters. I don't think we're going to need any other parameter. Now, here's the trick. How do we want to present these? Do we want a bunch of if-else statements? Or do I want to use maybe a dictionary, okay, and point, so I can use the dictionary to point to these prices, okay? So I think I'm going to go the dictionary route. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dictionary, and we'll just call this rooms. We'll set it equal to curly brackets, and because it's going to be kind of large, I'm going to actually hit the enter button, and this is just another way to style it. All right, so let's go ahead and do something like this. Let's put an integer for the key and then make our value a list. Okay, so what is the list going to contain? It's going to contain the queen beds and the actual cost. Now, why am I doing this? Well, at the end, I'm going to want to not only calculate the cost, but I want to send over, or I want the function to return not just the cost of the rooms, but which room they chose. Okay, that way we can present it in a nice way. So let's go ahead and add the 2 queen beds. And if you guys want to fast forward through this part, feel free. So I'm going to put a comma here, and then I'm going to put the price, which was $375. So $375. Okay, so that's key and value 1. Now, what's the key and value? Again, the key is going to be 1, and the value is a list. Okay, let's go to the next one. We'll do 2. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm allowing my user to kind of select, like, hey, do you want 1, the queen beds? Do you want 2, this particular room? 3, this particular room? So instead of having them actually type something, we can use the dictionary to retrieve that information faster. You'll see how that works. So 1 king bed, we'll grab that. And we'll say comma, that was 350. Let's put a comma and just do this. Control D if you're on PyCharm. What do we want? Queen suite for 525. Do capital S. And the king suite is cheaper. Okay. And that was 475. Okay, so I have my dictionary, okay? So what do I want to do now? Well, I want to present these options to the particular traveler or the buyer, okay? So let's go ahead and do that by simply printing a message first. Let's print something like this. We'll print, please select one of the following. Something like this. And I'll do a capital P here. And then I'm going to for loop through this. So when we for loop through a dictionary and we want to use the key and the value, well, what we do is we use a dot items method. And you'll see how that works right now. So I'm going to say for number, comma, room. And we'll say room and cost. So this represents, number is going to represent the key. And then room and cost is going to represent this list. What's in this list? At index 1, the name, or index 0, the name of the room. And then at index 1, the price of the room. So that's what I'm saying, room and cost. Okay, and then we'll say in rooms dot items. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and print like an F string here. And what we'll do is we'll say something like this. We'll put some round brackets here. And inside of the curly brackets, I want to put number. So this is going to present a number that they can tap. So when they see it, they're going to be like, oh, I want that room. They'll hit number 1. Oh, I want the 1 king bed. I'm going to hit number 2. So to make it a little bit easier for them. Now, what we'll do is we will say number, and then we could do something like this. Room. We'll do room and cost. Where does the room live in this list? Remember, at index 0. So I'm going to say room and cost 0. Okay, and then I'll put like a pipe symbol here and I'll say cost. And we'll put a $sign, curly brackets, and then the cost is at room and cost 1, right? So let's just go ahead and run this, see how it looks. Perfect. And we're missing one required. Okay, yep. So we have to pass in nights, of course. So we'll just say we're staying 5 nights. Just for now. Okay. Now, we're not getting the king suite for some reason. Oh, we are getting the king suite, but we're not getting the... So we have the one... We're not getting the queen suite for some reason. Why are we not getting the queen suite? Oh, there we go. Because we can't have duplicate keys. We'll put this 3 and this will be 4. And there we go. Okay. So again, that actually didn't exist because we had duplicate keys. All right. So only the king suite that also shared the same, because it came after, that was overriding the queen suite. All right. Let's go ahead and delete this because we can see that it's working. But the one thing we want to do is get their selection. Okay. So we'll say selection equals input. And we've already kind of told them to select one of the following. So I'm not even going to put a prompt in here. It's going to be kind of like something like this, because I think it looks nice. Let's go ahead and just run this again. And there you can see they can select right here. They can put 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever they want. Okay. Now, keep in mind that this particular problem, we're not going to address any error handling, okay, or exception handling. We're just going to complete the problem and move on, all right? So let's go ahead and continue. So they've given us their selection, and now what we want to do is probably int that so that we can use it to select the key. Now, why do I have to int this? Well, these are integers, and I'm going to use it to select that key. So what I could do is now I could just return I'll return selection, and then I'll pass in the key. So we'll say room selection. Selection is going to be the key. So we're going into this dictionary, and then whatever number they pass in here, it's going to get passed into here, okay? And then it's going to grab not the key, but it's going to grab the value, okay? So I'm going to give them the room selection. I want to just give them the room. So we'll say 0. And then why don't we also return the room selection? We'll do the rooms, the selection. Then we'll return 1, and then we'll multiply that by the nights. Okay, so this is going to give us the room that they wanted and the cost of it. Okay, so this function is done. Why don't we go ahead and move on to the next function, which is going to be a meal cost function. Okay, so simple enough. We're going to probably just take the same approach. We'll say def meal cost, and we're not just going to want nights for this. We're also going to want travelers. So let's go ahead and pass in nights. I want to make sure it's the same as this. Okay, so nights and travelers. Okay, because again, we're not just going to multiply each meal by the nights. We want to multiply it by the travelers and then multiply it by the nights as well. All right, so let's go ahead and do the same thing. We'll just go ahead and create a dictionary again, and we'll say the meal options equals a dictionary, and yeah, we might as well just hit enter. We'll say the option 1, we'll do the same thing here. We'll do a integer for the key and a list for the value that tells us the particular options. Okay, so we'll say, what do we want to do here? Let's look up brunch and dinner. Okay, so we'll start off with brunch. We'll put the price, which was 25 per person. So we'll say 25, and then we can put 2, which is going to be dinner, and that was 75 per person. Okay, now the meal options are done, and we're going to kind of take the same approach. So what I want to do, actually, just grab this. Okay, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to say for number and let's say meal and cost in, we'll say meal options dot items. Okay, and then we'll print out the number again. We'll say meal and cost here. Actually, I'm just going to change room. So meal and cost. I'll do the same thing here. Okay, and then we're going to return meal options. Meal options again. We'll do meal options here. Sorry. And then we want to also multiply this by the amount of travelers. So let's do this particular problem first. So we'll do that. We'll multiply it by travelers. Okay. Now let's go ahead and try this out. This should work. So I'm going to call it. And I'm going to print it too. We should probably check out the room function as well after this. And we'll pass in, let's say, 3 nights. Let's just do 2 nights. So 2 nights, 2 travelers. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so let's just go ahead and select dinner. Now, honestly, we should be able to select both brunch and dinner, but for the purpose of this lesson, we're not too concerned about that. We'll get to that when we go to the excursion cost function, because it explicitly tells us that we can have multiple excursions selected. Okay, So let's go ahead and run this. Oh, we already did. So I'm going to pass in, let's just say dinner. Okay. Okay. So they've selected dinner and it's going to cost 300. That's 75 times 2 people, which is 150. And they're staying for 2 nights. So this is working perfectly. Great. Let's go ahead and move on. So I'll delete that print. Let's check out room cost real quick. We'll just pass in the amount of nights. Let's just say 2 nights. Okay. And let's print this. Remember, we're printing this because these return, okay? So, yeah, we can see these print statements. We can see these print statements. Those are visible. When you print, you display things. When you return, it stores the value, but it doesn't actually display anything. So, again, we print the call. That's something we've gone over in my Python course, okay? Let's go ahead and run this. And let's select the, one king bed, okay? Okay. Excellent. We selected the 1 king bed and we're staying for 2 nights. So that's 350 times 2. So this is working perfectly. Let's go ahead and move on to the excursion function. And let's just check out the excursions. All right. What I'm going to do is just copy these real quick. I'm going to paste it right here in a doc string. And then that way I don't have to keep scrolling up. So we'll say def excursion cost. And this is not going to need any parameters. This is just a flat fee, okay? So let's go ahead and create that dictionary again. We'll call this the excursions. Set it equal to a dictionary. Hit enter. And now let's go ahead and pass in our key and value. We'll do the same thing. So we'll say 1. The value will be a list for the picnic. And the cost will be 50. Let's do 25 here. Snorkeling. And let's change this to a 2. Okay. 17. Guided hike. Again, you guys can fast forward through this stuff. 3. And then we'll just do the boat dinner, which is 200. Okay, so we'll say boat dinner, and the key will be 4. Okay, so we now have our dictionary. We'll present it the same way. So what I could do is just come right up here again, Control-C, paste this in, and we'll just change this. So we'll say for number, excursion and cost. Excursion. And we'll say in excursions.items. And then we know that this is going to be excursion and cost. So I can just delete meal. Excursion and cost. Excursion and cost. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to get their selection. Now, we have to write this one a little bit differently. Remember, they're allowed to pick multiple items or multiple excursions, okay? That means we're going to have to loop this. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to loop this whole block of code. So I'm going to say, again, I know these are not necessarily the best, while loops, but sometimes they're unavoidable. I don't know the exit condition for this yet. If I can think of something, I'll change my while loop. Okay. So this is going to loop, but after it loops, we need to store their selection, okay? So what we should do is create a list up here. And how do we want to do this? We'll call this selected excursions, okay? So selected excursions. And we'll create an empty list. And then what we'll do is we'll get their selection, and then we'll actually ask them if they want to select another. So we can just call this select another, set it equal to input, and we'll say, would you like to select another? We'll say excursion. And we'll say why? No. Okay. Now, all we'll do is we'll evaluate this. If they select yes, we'll just run this again. Okay? So we'll say if selected another. Actually, what we'll do instead of running it again, we'll say if selected another equals no, then what we'll do is we'll return. Why return? Return will break a loop as well. If they select yes, this will end up being false, okay? And then it will just loop again. All right, so I'll just return. Now, what do we want to return? We want to return their selected excursions. So we have to do this a certain way. I want to return their selected excursions, but what if they select boat dinner like 3 times, 4 times? Do I want to say, oh, you've selected boat dinner, boat dinner, boat dinner, boat dinner? No, we don't want to do that. Why don't we do something like this? Why don't we return this as a set? That way, if they've selected multiple items, multiple of the same items, the set will filter all of the duplicates out. Okay, that way if they select 4 boat dinners, 2 guided hikes, and a snorkeling, it's just going to say, you've selected a boat dinner, a guided hike, and a snorkeling. So that's what I'll do. I'll say, let's return a set of the selected excursions. Okay, so we'll say selected excursions. And that will convert that list to a set. However, we might need to create a list comprehension here. Because remember, when we add something or append something to this list, we're appending another list to it. So just using a set, that's not going to be able to filter out duplicate lists. It filters out duplicate items. So what I need to do is put a list in here instead. So I'm going to put a list in here, and then I'm going to run a list comprehension. Now, what do I want? I want excursion. And where does the excursion live? So if we go inside of this list, we know there's another list. Each list at index 0 has the name of the excursion. So that's what I want. I want excursion 0 for excursion in selected excursions. And that should actually work properly. Why don't we do something like this? Why don't we go ahead and just test this by adding their excursion. So we'll say selected excursions.append. And we will append their selection. So I would say excursions, square brackets, and then we put their selection, just like the other functions, okay? Remember, the selection is going to be a number, so we're appending the number. So basically, it would be the key, and it's going to give us the value. It's just going to append one of these lists. Now, let's go ahead and just run this, okay? So let me call it excursion cost, and let's go ahead and run. And let's print it too, actually. All right, so I'm going to select the boat dinner. I'm just going to hit yes. I'm going to select the boat dinner again. I'm going to hit yes. I'm going to select the snorkeling. Yes. And then I'm going to select the picnic. So what this should return is 1 picnic, 1 snorkeling, and 1 boat dinner, even though I've selected multiple boat dinners. If that does work, then everything's working properly. Okay, excellent. This is working properly. Again, we just use set, and it gets rid of those duplicates. But we have to do a little list comprehension. Remember, we went over that in my Python beginner course. You can change a list to a set. You can cast it, okay? But you have to pass a list in here or an iterable. I think it's works for strings too. I typically only use it on lists, and I don't actually use sets a lot. Okay, so that works, but now we just want to return the cost, right? So the cost should be a flat fee. So what I can do is I can do another list comprehension on this and select all of the 1 indexes, right? So I did the 0 index to get all of the excursions, but now I just want the numbers. So I would return the sum of a list, and I'll just say the same thing, but I'll say E1 for E in selected excursions. Okay, so let's go ahead and just run this one more time just to see. This one requires a little bit more functionality, so we had to, so I want to test it again. Let's go ahead and run. We'll do the boat dinner, which we know is 200. We'll select yes. This should bring it to 400. We'll select yes, and this should bring it to 450. So we'll select 1. We'll say no. And we have 450. This is working perfectly. It looks like our excursion cost function is done. Now, why do I have some squiggly? Oh, 2 blank lines always. Now, remember, you always, for proper styling, you want 2 blank lines above and below, okay? Or you could just make the case for below, because the first function, if it's on line 1, it will not require 2 spaces above it, okay? Or 2 empty lines. Okay, let's continue on. So now what I want to do is I want to kind of create like a menu, okay? Just like when we go to an ATM, the first thing we see is the menu. Then we can select withdraw, and the withdraw function will run. Or then we can select deposit, and the deposit function will run. And all that is done from their little main dashboard, that screen. I'm going to create that screen, but I'm going to call this main, okay? And this is actually really common, where we run everything from our main function. Now, why is main down here? Remember, if main is up here, because Python reads, it interprets from top down, these functions don't exist yet. So from my main function, I cannot access these. It has to be below, okay? Now, this is going to take no parameters as well. We're just going to run, like I said, it's just going to be like a dashboard. And I think the first thing that we want to do is get the room cost, okay? So we'll calculate the room, which means in this main function, we're going to have to ask them 2 things. How many nights are you staying and how many travelers there are? So why don't we just ask for travelers first? So we'll call this travelers equals input. We'll int this. Okay, and we'll pass in a prompt that says, please enter the amount of travelers. All right. And why don't we do the same thing, but for nights? So again, when I duplicate that, I just hit Control D, and we'll say nights. Okay. All right, that should work. And now we can call that function. Again, we want 2 blank spaces here, 2 blank lines. We can call the room cost. So we'll say room cost, then we just pass in the nights for this one. This one doesn't require travelers. And we'll say night. We'll call it nights. Now, what is this going to return? It's going to return whatever they selected for a room and the cost of that room, okay? So what can I do? If this returns a list, basically, or a tuple, it's going to return a tuple. What I can do is I can unpack that. So we know there's 2 elements in this tuple. The room they're staying in and the cost. So I'm going to set this equal to 2 variables. So I'm going to say room, comma, and cost. Room, we'll call it room cost. Room cost. Just like that, okay? Now, why is this saying room cost doesn't exist? Oh, because we can't use room cost. We've already used it here. So we'll call this room cost. Let's call it room total. Okay? Okay, so what's going to happen? This returns a list. Element 0 gets stored in room, and element 1 gets stored in room total. Okay? Let's do the same exact thing for, we'll do for the meals. Okay? So we'll say meals, meal total. We'll say meal total. Set it equal to meal cost. And this one requires nights and travelers. Okay? And then what we want to do is just call excursion cost as well. Okay, so we'll say excursions, and then excursion cost, or excursion total. Okay, we'll call the excursion cost function, and again, this returns a set, and with just single, like with duplicates removed, and then the cost as well. All right, so we are doing well here. What I want to do is kind of separate some things. So let's go ahead and comment this. I know we should have been commenting the whole time, to be honest with you. So perhaps you're going to want to go in and just start commenting some of this stuff. I'll just say we call our functions. And why don't we make it look nice too? We'll print welcome to the vacation calculator. And we'll make it all uppercase. So Control-Shift-U. All right. And then I actually like to do this too. So let's go ahead and print. And let's start off with a, yeah, let's do something like this. I like doing this. It makes it look kind of nice. Of equal length. And then we'll put a new line. All right. Now, why don't we just go ahead and print room total. Then we'll say meals, or meal total. Meals. And then we'll do the same thing for excursions. We'll say excursion total. Let's see how this works. Now, I don't have to call these functions, right? The reason I don't have to call these functions is because the dashboard does it for me. So the only function I have to call is the main function. So what I'll do here, we won't use if main equals name yet. I'll explain that to you in another lesson. So we'll just call that function. Okay, and run it. Okay, so please enter the amount of travelers. Let's just say there's 2 travelers and we're staying for 3 nights. Okay, excellent. Now we might want to fix this up so that this has some space, but this is working. So we'll go ahead and select the 1 king bed, 2. Okay, then we're going to select one of the following. We're going to select, let's go with dinner. And then let's choose 2 boat dinners. So 1 boat dinner, we'll select another yes, and another boat dinner. And yeah, let's select a picnic too. Yes, and we'll select a picnic. And we'll say no. And look what we get. Everything is working. So the king bed's going to cost $1,050 because we are staying 3 nights. Okay, so that's good. The dinner should be $450. That's where's the dinner? Yep, 75. Yep, so that is working correctly. And then you can see we've selected the picnic and the boat dinner. Obviously, I think we selected 2 boat dinners, which brought it up to 400, and then the picnic was 50. So this is working as well. Now we just want to present these a little bit, a little bit more beautifully. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're done with the problem. So I'm going to print an F string instead. So I'll keep those 2 variables there. We'll do an F string here. And what I'll do is say, you selected the, and then we'll just put this in curly brackets. So we'll say, and then we'll just give them the cost. We'll say something like this. Put a $sign. We'll do room total. And because we're dealing with money, we'll do a :.2f. Okay? Remember what that does. It just gives you 2 decimals. Okay? 2 zeros to the right of the decimal. All right, and we'll kind of do the same thing with meals. So what I could do is, why don't I just duplicate this? So I'll put meals in here. We'll do meal total. Delete this. We'll duplicate this, and we'll do it with excursions. And why don't we go ahead and do something like this? Excursion, yeah, we'll do excursion total. Okay. Let's delete this print statement. We'll run this problem one more time, and I think we are done. Oh, what we want to do is we're going to get the amount of nights. After that, we want a space as well. We'll do that. So it's going to call this function. After that function, we should probably have a new line too. So I think we can just come right to this input. Put a new line here. We'll do it for this input. And I don't know if we should do it for this input. We'll leave this one. Yeah, let's do it. Why not? Let's see how it looks. Let's go ahead and run it. Please enter the amount of travelers. We'll do 2. They're staying for 2 nights. Oh, okay. So we got to fix that. So the inputs, yeah, the backslash on the inputs doesn't look all that good. I figured we could take input first. What we could do here is just do end equals, we'll do a new line. End equals new line. And then excursions, we'll do end equals new line. Let's see if that works. Maybe this is going to give us a problem too. Okay, I think it's... Let's see. Let's see. And this input's going to have to do this. We're going to have to do the same thing here. So, comma, end. Now, this is just another argument that you can pass in. By default, it gives you a new line. Oh, it's already a new line by default. So what am I doing here? Let's go ahead and get rid of this. Let's just keep it the way it is for now. I could have just undid all these. But, hey, this is what problem solving is like. Sometimes you just do things over. I mean, I've been coding for a long time, and you still do these little mistakes, make these little mistakes. That's coding. You're going to do it the rest of your career if you get involved. Let's just go ahead and run it. Please enter the amount of travelers. We'll do 2, 2, and select one of the following. So what we could do here is just, for now, let's just print an empty line, okay? We'll just print 2, 2. Okay, that looks fine. And then at the end of each input, what we'll do is this. For now. I mean, there's a better way to do it, but I'm just trying to get this done. Okay. Again, guys, if you want, you can just fast forward right through that type of stuff, all right? So let's go ahead and run it, because I'm just making it look a little bit nice. 2, 2. That looks good. We'll select the King Suite, which is going to be 4. Okay, this looks good. Please select one of the following. Let's just select dinner. We'll say 2. And we'll select a boat dinner. 4. Select another one. Yes. Another boat dinner. Yes. And we'll do a snorkeling. And we'll say no. This looks great. Okay. Everything is working. So we have solved the problem. Again, one of the first things that you want to do is just gather information. But obviously, when we're solving these problems, I already have the information here that we need. So I'm just reading it. Okay? And you can deploy that same kind of technique where after you gather the information, you should still reread it. Okay? Or try to put it together in a really, clear and concise way. Anyways, guys, that will finish up this problem, and I hope to see you in the next. Hey everybody, what's going on? I hope you're ready for the next problem because we have it right here in front of us as usual. So let's go ahead and begin. Now, of course, I know I'm repetitious about this, but we have to gather the information. Now, this information is in front of us, so we have to interpret the information. And that obviously starts by reading it. Okay? So the subscription summary function takes 3 lists as arguments. That's pretty clear. The subscription summary function takes 3 lists as arguments. So we're going to build a function called subscription summary, and it's going to have 3 parameters. Let's continue reading. That have been populated by pre-written code in the main cell. So where is this pre-written code? Let's find that pre-written code, and I have it right here. So we can see, if we look to the left, this is obviously that function call, and then this is list 1, list 2, and list 3, okay? So first argument, second argument, third argument, which will actually be passed into the parameters. Now let's get a little more information on these lists, right? So the month subscribed is a list of integers where each integer is the number of how many months the subscriber purchased. So let's go look at the list. Looks like customer 1 purchased 1 month of service. Customer 2 purchased 12 months of service. And you get the idea here. Customer 3, 3 months of service, etc. Okay, pretty simple. Ad-free months. A list of integers where each integer is the number of months the subscriber paid for ad-free viewing. Okay, so basically the same thing. Customer 1 had no months of ad-free viewing, and we have customer 4 who had, 5 months of ad-free viewing. Okay, let's continue on. Now we have video on demand purchases, also a list of integers where each integer is the number of videos on demand each account purchased. So we'll just assume these are rentals, okay? And if we look, customer 1 had 7 rentals and customer 4 had 3 rentals, okay? So these numbers represent the customer. That's what I'm assuming. Now, let's get some more information again. A single month costs $7. 3 months can be purchased as a bundle for $18. So what I'm thinking here, because if we keep reading, we have something about ad-free viewing and video on demand. So I'm assuming right here, these 2 lines are referring to the months subscribed list, where each month is $7 unless you have 3-month bundles, which end up being $6, let's say, because it's $18 for 3 months. So if we look at that, it looks like customer 1 is going to pay $7. Customer 3 is going to pay $6 a month. And then let's look at customer 4, right? Customer 4 has 5 months. So I'm assuming that 3 months are $6 each. And then this customer also has 2 months at $7 each. But the second this customer has 6 months, all of them go back into that package deal. So he's paying $6 a month for every single month. Let's bring this back to a 5. All right, let's go ahead and look at ad-free viewing. So ad-free viewing costs an additional $2 each month. That's pretty simple. And video on demand purchases are $27.99. Wow. So a whopping $28 for a rental. That's a ripoff. The program should print the following: a summary of earnings for each customer, a total earnings for all customers, the total earned from ad-free watching and video and on demand, and the most profitable customer. So we can do this, right? Let's start off with creating that function, the subscription summary function, and we'll create the parameters. So what I'm going to do, let's just go ahead and copy this, right? Because this is the call, which means that's the name of the function. So we'll paste it in, okay? And it's going to take 3 lists, right? So 3 parameters. Parameter 1, pass that in. Parameter 2, let's pass that in. And we have parameter 3. Okay. And as you know, these parameters they're kind of like placeholders or empty boxes or variables where your arguments get passed into them. Okay. And we've gone over that in my Python beginner course. So hopefully you do understand that concept. If not, go ahead and watch that video if you get a chance. Okay. So let's continue on. We have to focus on one thing at a time, right? So we've kind of taken care of these in terms of creating the parameters for them. But now I just want to focus on the first one, month subscribed. Let's start calculating this, okay? So if we look at this, we have the single month, which is $7, but every time they hit that 3-month, every time they hit a 3rd month, it gets bundled down. So what we'll do is we'll for loop through it, right? So let's create a new list that's going to hold all of the calculations for us, okay? Or the totals. We'll call it months. We'll call it months total. Oops. And we'll set that equal to an empty list, and we'll populate it. All right. Now, obviously, we're going to have to iterate through months subscribed, so we're going to for loop through it. So I'm going to say for month in month subscribed. Yep. Put a colon here. And what do we want to do? Every time we're at a month, we need to analyze this month. Now, we could do this all on one line, but I don't think that's going to be clear and concise. So I want to make this very clear. I think we should establish a variable that holds regular months and establish a variable that holds discount months. Okay? So I'm going to say reg months. And how can we calculate the regular months? Well, for regular months, all we need to do is divide by 3 and get the remainder, right? Because it's every 3-month package. So regular months can either be 0, they can be 1, they can be 2, but they'll never be 3, because as soon as you hit 3, you're not in a regular month again, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. What we'll do is we'll say regular months equals the month, right? So that represents this number, or this, oops, sorry about that. The 12, the 3, the 5, the 1, that's what month is going to represent. And all we're going to do is divide that by 3. If it's a multiple of 3, then it's going to equal 0. It's going to have 0 remainder, and there's going to be 0 regular months. That's actually really simple. Okay, so we've established regular months. Now, why don't we establish discount months? So we'll say discount months equals, and I think this is actually really easy too. We just take their month, right? So say it's a 5. That means there's going to be 2 regular months. Well, how do we get the discount months? We just subtract the regular months from the month, and that's how we'll get the discount months. So we'll say month minus discount months, regular months, sorry. Okay, and that's it. But now we have to do something with it. So we've established the regular months, the discount months, and then we have to append it to this list. But we have to append the price, right? So this is obviously going to get multiplied by 7, and this is going to be multiplied by 6, and then we just add them together. So I would say months total dot append, right? That's how we add to the end of a list. And I want to append the regular months. So we'll say reg months times 7, right? And then we add the discount months times 6. And there we go. Pretty simple. So we're just using modulus to get those regular months. And then we subtract those regular months from the month and we get the discount months. All right. So that should take care of months total. But what should we do? We should test it. Let's make sure, right? So let's go ahead and print it. We'll print months total. Not months subscribed. We want months total. And let's go ahead and run this. And this actually looks pretty good. So let's look at 5, right? So 5 should be 18 plus 14, which is, 32. So this is working. Perfect. Excellent. Let's continue on, right? We're done with months subscribed. Now we want to iterate through ad-free months. Now, ad-free months is actually really simple because we don't have to establish any discount months, right? It's just a flat fee. It's $2 each month. That's what you're paying. There's no discounts. So I can actually do that on one line, and I can use the list comprehension. So what I would do is say ads. We'll call this ads total as well. And I'm going to do a list comprehension right here. And remember, with our list comprehension, we state what we want to be in the list first. Okay? So what we want appended to the list. And what I want is the month times 2, right? And then we can say for month and ad-free months. And this will work perfectly. I already know. So let's say ads total. Let's go ahead and run this. And this works terrific. Okay, excellent. Yep, 5 times 2 is 10. Customer 4 had 5 months, so they paid $10. Everything's working. Ads total is already done. And we're going to do the same thing with video on demand purchases, right? Except this one is actually a ripoff. Okay, so $28. Let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say, let's just call this video total. And we'll do another list comprehension. We'll say we want the month times $27.99 for month in video on demand purchases. Let's go ahead and print it. Always just to double check, right? So video total, let's run it. Yep, this is working. This is indeed working. We can see just because we have this one here, we know we're getting $27.99. Okay, $27.99 plus $27.99 is $55.98. All right, so everything is working. Excellent. Let's go ahead and continue on because these are actually done. Now, what else does it want from us? It wants us to produce a summary of earnings for each customer. So that means we kind of have to calculate these, don't we? Like I would have to add customer 1 customer one's ads total, customer one's videos total, and customer one's months total. I'd have to add those three numbers together and then iterate again, and then add customer 2, 2, 2, iterate again, 3, 3, 3. So we need the numbers from each one. So I actually have to create another list again. And what we can do, how can we approach that? How do we iterate through 3 lists at the same time, right? Because I want to go through each one of these lists. I know they're already ordered. Customer 1 sits at the 0 index, okay? And customer 2 is at the 1 index. So I know these are ordered. I know I can iterate through these all at the same time using zip because they're all the same size. So typically when you use the zip function, you want your lists to be the same size. If they're not, there's another way to approach it, but we don't care about that right now. So I'm going to literally create another list. So I'm going to call this, let's call this complete total, or like complete customer total. We'll set it equal to a list. And all I want to do is set 3 variables, right? One variable is going to represent months, one variable ads, and one variable video total, okay? So I would say something like this. Give me M for months, and then we wanted to add that to ads, okay? And then we want to add it to video total. And then you'll see what I do. So I will say for M, comma A, comma V in zip. And then we zip these 3 together, okay? So I would say months total, ads total, and then video total. So let's just go over this, okay? Because this might be a little bit confusing. We're zipping these 3 together. So imagine them stacked. They're stacked on top of each other. And M is going to represent the first index for months total. A is going to represent the first index for ads total. V is going to represent the first index, or the 0 index, but the first element for all of these. For video total, we add them together, and then we move on. We iterate again. So the second loop, and it does the same thing, okay? So M again for months, A for ads, V for video. We added them together, and then we iterate again to the third element, all right? And we'll end up with totals here. So let's go ahead and print this. Print complete customer total. Let's go ahead and run it, and this is working properly. Now, if you want a better understanding of zip, what you could do is something like this. Let's just write a regular for loop, okay? And I'm going to copy this for loop right here, just so you can see it a little bit closer up. So, let me grab this instead. Paste that in, and let's just go ahead and print. I want to make it look nice, right? So you can see what's going on. So we'll say months, curly brackets, M. And then we'll do dot, 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 dot. We'll do ads, curly brackets, A. Put a space here. We can do dot, 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 dot. And then video, colon, curly brackets, V. Let's just run this. And you can see, this is how the zip for loop is working, all right? Just right here. Okay, let's continue on. I'm going to delete that for loop because, again, we've already done it on line 38. I can get this out of my way, and now I can continue reading. So what do we want to do next? We want a summary of earnings for each customer. Well, this is actually a little bit tricky, but easy at the same time. There's a couple ways to approach this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a for loop with enumerate. Okay, and you're going to see how that works. So let's go ahead and just focus on for looping through this, right? This has the total for each customer. So I want to for loop through it. So I'm going to say for index, comma, value, and enumerate complete customer total. Now, what does this do? It's going to give me the number or the total for that customer. So let's say 195. And it's also going to give me the index. So let me just go ahead and print that so you can see. So we'll print index, comma, value, And let's run this. And you can see. So it's giving me customer one's complete total, and it's giving me the index that that complete total's at. So I can use this index. I can use this, this variable. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write a series of print statements here. So I'm going to print. And I'm going to say customer, and why don't we say something like this? Index, and let's make this an F string, of course, plus 1. So this is saying customer 1, right? Because we're starting from a 0 index. We can always use the index to kind of represent the elements, and we can always start from 1 just by adding 1. This doesn't alter anything, okay? This is purely visual. All right, so we're saying customer 1, and I'll say had a total of, and then we'll just put the value here, okay? So if we'll just run this really quick, and we can see this is perfect. Let's make this look a little nicer by using a :.2f. I always like to do that when we're working with money. It formats it, okay? So, or zero pads it. It truncates it and zero pads it. So when you truncate, you remove elements, okay? And when you zero pad it, you just you're making zeros, okay? So let's go ahead and run this. And now you can see that looks a little bit better, doesn't it? So this is working pretty good. It's looping through. It's telling us the total for each customer. But now how do we access the individual prices or the individual totals from months total, ads total, and video total? Well, we know that these are all organized, right? So at the 0 index for every single one of these is customer 1. At the 1 index for every single one of these is customer 2. So why don't I use the index? We know they're all the same length. So I'll use this index. Remember, this was a 0 through, this is going to be a 0 through 4. And I'm going to use that. So what I'm going to say is print, what do we want? So a summary of earnings for each customer. So we did the total earnings. Total earned from ad-free and video on demand. Okay, well, I guess we could just do that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's what we'll do. So we'll say an F string, and we'll say, let's just say earned. I'm trying to figure out a nice way to present this. So customer 1 had a total of, and we'll say add. We'll do ad free. We'll put the curly brackets here. And how do we access ad free? Well, all we do is we say, we go to this ads total, right? And we say index. So ads total, square brackets, right? That's how we index in. And now this is, for the very first loop, this is going to say ad free, and then it's going to have the ads total money, or the ads total, whatever that customer spent, okay, at the 0 index. The second loop, this index is going to change to 1. So it's going to represent the second customer. Okay. So you get the idea here. So we'll say add free. And then why don't we do something like this? We'll print an F string that says video. We'll say video on demand. On demand. I know that's a little bit weird. We'll just get rid of that. Okay. Put the $sign here, curly brackets, and then we just do the same thing for this. We'll say video total, okay? And then curly brackets, or square brackets, index. Let's go ahead and run this. Okay, this looks pretty good. Why don't we do something like this, too, and make it look a little bit nicer? Just so you can kind of separate it from the total. Let's run that and just see. Yeah, this is fine. I'm okay with this. And what we'll do is we'll put those :.2f. :.2f. We'll run it. Looks good to me. Okay, now this is done. So now what do we want to do? Well, we want to find the most profitable customer. Okay, so that's pretty easy. The only thing we need to do is find the max, right? So whoever has the highest value inside of this list, that's the most profitable customer. Okay? And we can just get their index. So what I could say is, remember, this for loop is done. That's why we're leaving it, okay? We're going back into the function scope, okay? We're leaving the for loop scope. And we're going to print something like this. An F string will say, the most valuable customer was, I don't want to use customer twice. We'll just say, I guess we'll do it for this. No big deal. Was customer, and we'll say the max of customer total, but we want to get the index of the max. So that's what we'll do. We're going to say complete customer total dot index, right? And what do we want? The index of what? What number, right? This is a list of numbers. And we want to get the index of the max number. So I would say max complete customer total again, and then we just add 1. And then what I could do is say something like this. Print another F string. We can say they spent, we'll put a $sign here, and we'll put their total here. So I'll just say max again. Max complete customer total, and we'll :2f it. :2f. Let's go ahead and run this. And we have 203.92 not in list. Okay, so what are we doing here? Oh, the +1. I have this +1 in the wrong place. Okay, I need to get the index first. So the innermost function works first, right? We get the max first. Then we pass that into the index function, and then we add 1. All right, so we want to be right outside here. Otherwise, you're trying to get the max of a number that doesn't exist. So let's run this, and there we go. Okay, so this problem is done. I hope you had fun. If you want, just watch it over again, okay? Keep going over these, all right? That's how you're going to get good. All right, so that will wrap it up, and I will see you in the next problem. Hey everybody, hope you're ready for the next problem, because we are going to build a simple inventory management system, and it needs to have the following features. So we need to be able to add a new product, view the entire inventory, update existing products, delete products, search for a product, and I think that's it. And if we look down here, we can get an idea of what it should look like, okay? So the database, let's quickly discuss the database, which is going to be a CSV file. So you can go ahead and create the inventory.csv file, and then go ahead and add the following field names in this order, okay? We're going to work with them in this order. And then, of course, these values can be whatever you want. Just, again, they correspond with the field names. So cheese, pear, banana, kiwi, these are all items. These are all prices. Sorry. And these are all quantities. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this. When I look at this, I know that for pretty much every single one of these functions, I'm going to have to open the database because I want like real-time data. Okay. And I'm going to need to be able to open the database and read from it. And in some instances, I'm going to need to be able to write to the database. Now, do I want to write all of that code in every single function? Absolutely not. I'm going to write 2 functions that are going to do the work for me. One function will read from the database, and another function will add to it. Okay, or write to it. So let's go ahead and create the read function for now. Okay, so I'm going to say def open file. Okay, we'll write our context manager. So we'll say with open. Okay, and if you don't know how this works, go to my beginner Python course and go over file handling. Okay, and we're going to open the CSV file, which is acting as our database. Okay, we want to open it as read, and then we store it in F. Now we're working with a CSV file, so I want to use the CSV module. So what you're probably going to have to do is import CSV. Now mine actually does it automatically for me, but I'm going to write it anyways. And now that I've imported CSV, what I can do is I can create a reader, and I can say reader equals csv.dictReader, and it's a capital D. Okay, and then we read F, and now we have a reader object. Okay, and this object is going to have all of the products in it. So let me clear up this spacing really quick, and I think we should do it here too. Let me bring this up. Let me bring it up to the top of the file. Okay. All right, so now we have this reader object, and I think that I want to do two things with this reader object. I want to create a list with the product and its associated price and quantity, and then I just want to create another list with just the product names. So what I'm going to do with the complete list of products is I'm going to use that to alter and then rewrite. And then I'm going to use the list of names of products just to check to see if things already exist or not. And you'll see how that works the more we start to code this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a for loop, okay? Now you may be thinking, maybe you could just do a list comprehension for both of those lists. And we can't do that because the reader object only allows us to iterate through it once. So I have to do both. I have to create both lists. So I'm going to say complete products. We'll set this equal to an empty list, and then we'll say product. We'll do product names. All right, now I want to for loop through reader. So I'm going to say for product in reader. We want to append. Let's do complete products first. So we'll say complete products dot append, and then we'll append the entire product. And then we'll also do product names dot append. And we don't want to append the entire product. We only want to append all of the names, okay? The names of the product, which is going to be in the item, basically the item category, which would be an item key. So I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to say product, square brackets, item. Now, let's go ahead and comment these out really quick, just so you can see what the reader produces, all right? Because some of you may be confused, like, what does the reader produce? So I'm going to print product here. And let's go ahead and call this function. So we'll say open file, and there we go. This is what the reader object produces, dictionaries. So we can see that for every single product, it gets its own dictionary, and it has those field names as keys. So item is a key, and then the value is cheese. Price is a key, value 670. Quantity is a key, value is 127 or 127. So what the complete products list does is store, oops, let's go ahead and run this again. What it does is store the entire dictionary, okay? So it's going to store this dictionary, and then it's going to store this dictionary, and I'll print those out in a second. And then what the products names, or the product names list is going to store is just cheese, pear, banana, kiwi, okay? And it does that because I'm passing in the product and then I'm using the key to index into the value. Okay, so if you're a little bit confused about that, go in and watch my lesson on dictionaries in my beginner Python course. So let's go ahead and delete this print statement, and then I'm going to print both of these, okay? So let's comment this out. Let's go ahead and print. Hold on one second. Control. Okay. Now I can print, and then I'll put my parentheses, and let's go ahead and run this now. And we get none, none, none. Oh, okay. Sorry. We have to print after. So let me go ahead and we can't print and append. I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and delete that. Run this, and then we'll print it. Okay. So we'll print complete. We'll print product names and then complete products. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this now. All right. So you can see, what does the product names produce? Again, all of the names. And what does the complete products list produce? A list. Look at this square bracket here. And inside of the list is a dictionary that represents each product in its entirety. Okay? So let's go ahead and move on now that you know what this is doing. Let's delete that. And we don't want to print it. Actually, what we want to do is return it. So we don't even have to be inside of the context manager. We can just be right out here. We can return the product names and the complete products. So what is this going to return? excuse me, it's going to return a tuple. And what's going to be in that tuple? Well, I'll explain that. At the 0 index of this tuple will be this list of names. And at the 1 index of this tuple will be this entire list, which is all of the complete products. Okay? So keep that in mind because that's what we're going to be working with when we go through this, the rest of this problem. Now, let's focus on one function at a time. Okay, we know we need to add a new product, which is probably going to require us to read, right? And then after we read, we can see what products already exist. And if a product doesn't already exist, then we'll allow them to add a product. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we'll create that. And during the process of creating this function, we're also going to create the write file function. But I want to create this one first. So let's say def add product. And this will require no parameters. And what we can do is we can ask them. We can ask them what product they want to add. All right, so we'll say, let's say something like this. Product equals input. Please enter the name of the product you want to add. All right. Then we have to check it, right? We have to make sure that the product doesn't already exist. We don't want duplicate products, okay? So what we'll do is, remember, we can use the product's name. So we're going to have to call this function. We're going to say open file, and let's store that. So we'll say product names, because we know that product names is at the 0 index of the tuple that this produces. But we can also unpack this. Because it's a tuple, we can unpack it. So I can say product names and complete products, okay? And what are we going to do with complete products? We're going to alter it, and then we're going to rewrite to the inventory.csv file, all right? So we'll say complete products. And again, this will unpack the tuple. This list right here, down here, will end up in the product's name. And I know I'm being repetitive here, but you know, I want to make sure you guys understand this. So this will be at the 0 index, and then this is going to be at the 1 index, which means product names and complete products. So they get unpacked, okay? Now that we have the product names, we can check to see if their product doesn't already exist. So we could say something like this. If the product is not in product names, that means it doesn't already exist, and therefore we can create it, okay? So what we'll do is we will allow them to create it by asking them the other fields. So we're going to say, give me the, we want the price. So we'll say price equals input. Please enter, we'll say enter the price. All right, and then I'll duplicate this, and I'll call this quantity. And I'll say, please enter the quantity. All right. So as long as the product doesn't already exist, we'll get the rest of the information. And then we have to write this new product to the complete products dictionary so that we can take that dictionary and rewrite the whole thing to this inventory CSV file, which now will require us to write the write function. So I'm going to call this write file. I'm going to say def write file. And what I'm going to do is I need to get something. Before I can write, I need some information. So I'm going to allow the user to pass in a complete products list. So I'd say complete products. And now that they can pass that list in, I will use a writer to write that entire list of dictionaries back to the CSV file. So we're basically overwriting it with all of the new information or the changed information. So we'll say with open, we will open inventory.csv. We'll open it as write. And I actually want to specify another keyword argument here where it's going to be new line equals no new line. So an empty string. Now, if we don't put this in, what happens is when it rewrites the file, it's going to look like this. And I don't know. I just think it's ugly. I guess maybe it's a little more readable with the spaces, but it's a little bit ugly. All right, now we'll say as f, so we store it in f, and we create our writer now, okay? So our writer will equal CSV dot dict writer. Okay, and we want to write f, and then we also have to provide the field names, okay? It needs to know what the field names are. Again, these are the field names. Now, there's two ways to get the field names, okay? The easy way would be to pass a list, because this requires a list as an argument. So what I would do is pass a list, and then I put my field names, which is item, price, quantity. Another way you could do it is the complete products list is going to have a list of dictionaries, and all of the keys are the field names, okay? So I could do something like this. I could say complete products at the 0 index, give me the keys. We know there's a dictionary at the 0 index, which is this dictionary right here, and give me all of the keys, which is a list. So a list of item, price, and quantity. Okay, so we can do it this way, or you can just pass a list. Perhaps we'll just do it this way because it's interesting, all right? It might be a little bit better to do it the other way, but maybe this is more dynamic in that it's, you know, in case your field names change or something like that, this would be able to address that. All right, so now that we have a writer and we have the field names, we have to tell our writer to write those field names by saying writer.write header, okay? And then we can rewrite the whole file with a list of dictionaries. So what I would do is say writer.write rows, okay? And I'll pass in complete products. And that will actually do it. And now let's go ahead and finish our add product function. So we're going to ask them to give us the price and the quantity as long as it's available, which means it's not in the product names list. After they do that, we can add it to the complete products list. So this list right here. So I would say complete products dot append, and then we'll append a new dictionary with the new product. Okay, so I could do something like this. I can say item will now be equal to the new product that they put in. Okay, price, so key and value pairs we're doing here. We'll say price is actually price, and then quantity is quantity, and that's it. And then we have to write this new list with the added product to the inventory.csv file. So I would call write file. So I'd say write file, and then I pass in the new complete products list that has been altered because we just added something to the end. Now let's go ahead and just check this function out. All right, so we'll say add product. Let's go ahead and run it. Enter the name of the product you want to add. First off, we haven't addressed, I want to give them a message. So before I do this, I'm going to actually give them a message. I'm going to say, if it is in the product names, which means this is false, this will execute. All right. So what I'll do is print a message. I'll say like product already exists. Okay. Now let's run this again. So let's start off by trying to add an apple. Let's see if there's an apple in here. Oh, there isn't. Let's try to add cheese. So we'll say cheese. Product already exists. Let's run it again. And now let's try to add an apple. Apple doesn't exist, therefore we can continue. So we'll enter the price at, let's say, $1.89. And let's say we have 100 of them. Let's hit enter. And let's check our inventory.csv file. And it is working perfectly. This is terrific. Okay, so one thing that we would probably want to do is just give them a message here. So we could say something like this. We'll print file, or not file, let's say product. Okay, there we go. All right, now we're not going to be doing any error handling in this particular problem. We'll do that in the next problem. So for this, it's just going to be, you know, straightforward. We're just going to write the functionality and move on, all right? All right, so I think that this is pretty much done. That adds a product. It takes care of if a product already exists. One thing it doesn't do is it doesn't log the event, okay? And it also doesn't validate the inputs, okay? So you might want to validate these to make sure that they're like valid inputs, okay? You don't want someone to put in the price section Bob. And for the quantity, you don't want them to put like hi. So what you would want to do, and I want you to do this on your own. I want you to either create a function that will validate these inputs or just build it right into the existing function, which is add product. All right, so go ahead and do that after we're done, or you can do it. You can pause the video and do it now, whatever you want to do. Let's continue on. Add product is working. That's terrific. What we can do now is create the view the entire inventory, and this is actually going to be really easy. I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say def view all, and I'm going to print, and this isn't going to be beautifully displayed, okay, but it's going to do the job. So I'm going to print the open file function, and I'm going to put square brackets here, because what does open file produce? A tuple. We know a tuple is essentially a list that cannot be changed or altered. It's immutable. Okay, so this produces that tuple. We already know that product names is at the 0 index and complete products is at the 1 index. So I could probably just show them the 1 index, okay? It's not going to look all that pretty, but it'll work for now, all right? So let's run this, and we run the view all function, and it gives us a list of all of the items, okay? So, yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, you could loop through this if you wanted to. Why don't we do that? Why don't we make it look nice, all right? So we'll say for product and open file, square brackets 1, print. We could print the product. We could say product. Let's print an F string. We'll make it look nice. So we'll say F product colon, and then we'll say product square brackets item. All right. Oh, we have to use single quotes in here, right? Because we're using double quotes for our main string, for our F string. And we can say something like this, space, pipe symbol. Oh, we want to be outside of the curlies, sorry. So space, pipe symbol, space. Then we'll say price, curly brackets, and then obviously it's going to be product, square brackets, price. And we can put a $sign next to it. And then we'll say quantity. We'll do the same thing for quantity. So we'll do this. Sorry, we want a pipe symbol. All right. Yeah, quantity. Curly brackets. Do product. And then we'll pass that in. So square brackets, single quotes, and then quantity. I use double quotes so much. One of the reasons I use double quotes is because I use single quotes sometimes in my strings, and these will actually break your double. If you try to use double quotes inside of your string, you'd either have to use an escape character, or you would probably just want to switch to the single quote, all right? Or else it will break the actual string itself. Let's go ahead and run this, see how it looks now. And this is a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So we can go ahead and move on, all right? Now, we have to do an update a product, okay? That's going to require a little bit more logic, because we have to find the product first, find where it lives inside of the list, because remember, all of the products are inside of complete products. So let's go ahead and write that function. We'll say def update, and then we'll call the open file function, and we'll unpack it. Okay, so we will say, let's say product names, and then let's do complete products again, equals open file. All right, now what I want to do, to update a product, we have to make sure it exists. We don't want them to try to update a product that doesn't exist. I mean, we could probably shorten the logic a little bit just by assuming the for loop won't find it, but we'll do a little check, okay? So we'll say if product names, if product, we'll ask them for the product, right? So we'll say product equals input. Please enter a I don't know, product to update. And then we'll check. We'll say if product in product names. That means it exists, and it means that they can update it. So we'll put a colon here. Then what we do is we'll loop through it. Okay, so we'll say, and we're going to want to use an enumerate loop, because if the product exists, that means we want to find where it lives in the complete products list, okay? And then we're going to update that index. And it's really easy to do that if we use an enumerate for loop. So I'm going to say something like this. If the product and product names exist, we'll ask them for the price. So we'll say price equals input. And what I could do is just copy these. Control C. We'll paste. And then we'll say, please enter the new. All right. Now what we'll do is we'll for loop, and we'll use the enumerate for loop because we need to find where the product exists and the index that it's at so we can update it, okay? So I'm going to say for index, comma, let's use item, okay? Now, why am I using item when we know this represents a product? Well, we've already used product, okay? So I'm going to say for index item and enumerate. And we're going to enumerate the complete products list. Okay. And let's just see what this produces. Okay. So if you haven't studied enumerate, or you don't remember enumerate, I think it's in my beginner Python course. But if not, you could Google it, and I'm just going to show you what it produces. It just produces the index and the value. So I'm going to say print index, comma, item. And let's run this. And let's say Apple, because we know Apple exists. We'll say just 445, 67. And you can see now what enumerate produces. It gives us the complete product dictionary and the index it lives at. And what we're going to do is when we find that apple, or when we find that kiwi, we're going to index in, okay, to the third index and completely overwrite this dictionary with a new dictionary. So let's do that. We'll say this. If the product, or let's say if the item equals product. Now this isn't very clear and concise. So what I would recommend doing for this particular one, why don't we go ahead and say enter the product to update, and then let's say this. Let's just say complete product. We already have complete products list. So we'll say full product, okay? Just so it makes a little bit more sense. So we'll say if the full product item equals the product that they put in, we know we're at the right index, and therefore we can overwrite the dictionary at that index with a new dictionary. Okay, so we'll say something like this. Complete products, square brackets, index. Because remember, index produces the proper number that we need. All right, and then we'll set it equal to a new dictionary, and I'll just copy one of these. So Control C, Control V, and I'll say this would be the product, this will be price, and this will be quantity. Okay, and then we just write it. So we'll say write file, complete products, and then I'm going to grab this. Control C, paste it down. And let's go ahead and test this out. So I'll run it. Please enter a product to update. Let's go ahead and put in Apple because we know the Apple exists. And then we'll update it to like something extravagant so we can clearly see that the update has worked. So I'll put like 4,000 and then 7,000. Product successfully added. So it should update, and there we go. We get the updated value. Okay, great. So now I just want to take care of if the product is not in product names, then it just doesn't exist. So you can't update a product that doesn't exist. So we'll say else print product does not exist. All right. So that takes care of update, and we can go ahead and move on. So I'm going to delete the call, scroll up, see what we got to do next. We need to be able to delete a product. Okay, so this one should actually be a little bit easier. Well, Not necessarily, because after you delete it, you still have to write the file. Okay, so again, I'm going to copy this line right here because we're going to unpack this almost every single function. So I'm going to say def delete product. Okay, colon, paste this in. And now what we'll do is we will ask them for the product that they want to delete. So we'll say product again equals input. Please enter the product to delete. All right. And then we want to search for it. Where do we want to search for it? Let's make sure it exists first. So we'll say if product in product names, that means it exists and therefore they can delete it. So we will say we'll run a for loop. We'll run a for loop. So we'll say we'll do another enumerate too. Should we do an enumerate? This is tricky, right? Because you don't want to delete a product within its own for loop. Now, you can get away with it if you're doing it for one product. But the second you start to delete multiple items inside of its own for loop, it can end up being a jumbled mess. It can end up giving errors, okay? You can get away with it in this instance. But what I think I'd like to do is simply create a new list. So what we'll do is we'll overwrite complete products. Okay? And we'll say complete products will basically filter out that product. This will work. So complete products, we want the product, the whole product. Actually, we really shouldn't use product. The reason we shouldn't use product is because we're already using that variable. So I'm going to say item again, right? We'll do full product, just like we did up here. So Control C. We'll paste that in. I want the full product for full product in complete products if the full product item does not equal the product that they passed in. And let's go ahead and print complete products just to see if this works. So we'll say print complete products. Let's call this function. So we'll say delete product, run it. Please enter the product to delete. Let's make sure we have some, let's pass in a kiwi. So we'll say kiwi. We'll run it and make sure the kiwi has been deleted. So we have the cheese, the pear, the banana, and the apple, and the kiwi's gone. Okay, this works totally fine. Instead of printing it, what we can do is write file. We'll write the complete products, and then we will print a message. So product successfully deleted. Put a comment, exclamation point, and that's fine. Now, if the product is not in product names, that means that they can't delete it because it doesn't exist. So we can just say this again. So, all right, and this should work. This should work fine. Let's try to run it one more time. And please enter the product to delete. So we'll say, let's put something that doesn't exist again, like soup. Stop and don't want to stop and rerun. Just hit enter. Product does not exist. Let's try it one more time. Let's say the kiwi. Remember, we didn't actually delete the kiwi from the list because we printed complete products, but we did not write it. So let's try deleting the kiwi for real. Kiwi. Product successfully deleted. And the kiwi's gone. Excellent. So the delete product function now works too. So let's delete the call and see what we got to do next. Search for a product. Okay. So this actually should be pretty easy. We're not writing. So I'm going to take this again. I'm going to say Control C. I'll say def search. And now what I want to do is paste that in, the call. We unpack it. And we're going to search for a product. So we'll ask them the product. I'll just copy this. Paste it down. Please enter the product to search, I guess, right? We'll say search. And then if the product in product names, then what we can do is we can loop it. So we'll say for item in complete products. We'll do complete products. What we want to do is display the entire item, kind of like we did right here. So I'm going to actually take this, Control C, and I'll create an if statement. I'll say if the item, square brackets, item, and I guess we should write full product. Yeah, let's do full product. So Control C, just to make it a little more readable. So Control V, equals the product. Then we will do this. We'll print this. So let's paste it, put our colon in, and let's call this function, see if it works. All right. So search, let's run it. Please enter the product to search. Let's make sure we have, so we'll just say pair. All right. String indices must be integers. All right, so what's going on here? Oh, we want full product here, right? Full product. Full product. Full product. Let's run it one more time. Pair. And there we go. Works excellent. I don't know why we're getting these. Indentation is not a multiple of 4. Oh, okay. There we go. Pretty simple. And the search function is now complete. So we can go ahead and move on. I think we're just going to build a menu now. Again, we're not doing error handling. We'll do that in the next project. So search for a project is done. Yep. Let's just go ahead and create the menu, and we'll just use a main function to do it. So we'll say def main. And this is where we need to, I want to do something here. Do I want to use a dictionary? We'll use a dictionary in the next main function. But in this function, we're going to explicitly write a whole bunch of if, elif, else statements just to write them, okay? The reason we want to just write is because that's how we learn. You continue to write and write and write, and you practice the basics. And then you can move on to more advanced stuff. All right? So let's go ahead and just print a message. We'll say, welcome to the inventory management system. Put an E here. And I think I want this to be all caps like usual. So Control-Shift-U. Excellent. Then what we want to do is we want to loop. Now, I want to talk about while true loops. You probably hear me say it a million times, it's best to avoid them. But I haven't really given you an alternative, okay? A lot of times I will just end up writing a while true loop. It's not the best practice. If I was writing, you know, really like production level code, then I wouldn't use them. For like lessons and stuff, it's fine because it helps you learn syntax anyways. But I'm going to use a for loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for underscore in range, okay? And I'm going to basically pass in like 25. So no matter what, you can only use this program 25 times. You can only do you can only complete 25 functions or run 25 functions. Or you can explicitly tell the program to exit, okay? So for range in 25, I'm going to get a selection from them, okay? So we'll say selection equals input, and we'll say would you like to, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it in a multi-line string. I'm going to copy this right here, paste it in. So 1, 2, 3, delete, paste. Now, this looks really weird, okay? I did this just because it was fast and easy. But you can see it looks like it's not indented into the function. This is what a multi-line string looks like. And if this messes you up, you can do it another way, okay? You can just use a backslash every single time you want to enter down a new line. This was just easier. I was able to, you know, copy and paste it right in. So you can do it like this too. Just be aware, it does look a little bit weird, okay? So what we'll do is we'll get their selection, and then we'll just make a bunch of if else, okay? Now you can do this. I like to do this with a dictionary because there's a lot of options here. I don't want to write 6 if, elif, else statements. I just don't. So I usually use a dictionary. We'll do that in the next project. I'm going to say if selection equals 1, what will we do? We'll call the add a product, okay? Elif selection equals 2, we want to update a product. Oh, view entire inventory. So view all. We'll say elif selection equals 3. We'll update. And you get the idea here. If you want to fast forward through this, go for it. Equals 4. We will delete elif selection equals 5. We will search. Okay. Else. Actually, let's be explicit. Let's just be explicit with all of them. Elif selection equals 6. We will break. Okay? And that will end the program. All right. So if you want to go ahead and try to map these functions to a dictionary, map these calls to a dictionary, go for it. We'll do it in the next problem/project anyways, so don't worry about that. And I think the last thing to do is just to call this. Now, mapping stuff like this is not always a good idea, okay? And I'm going to show you something in the next problem that will help you clear this up, okay? This isn't always the best way to do things, all right? Because it's not very explicit. I like clear and concise code. And this isn't super clear. I mean, it's clear enough. It works. But there's actually better ways to do it. Now, let's go ahead and run this. And I'm going to say if name equals main. So we'll say main. Now, I don't know if I went over this. I don't think I have. Basically, this gives a degree of protection. Okay, so let me show you how this works. I'm going to actually delete this. Okay, and I'm just going to call main. All right. Now, I'm going to create another file. Oh, here it is. We already have a file. Test. Okay? And I'm going to, let's say that I have some functions inside of this inventory management.py file that I really like. I really want to use, like, say, let's just say I want to use the open file and the write file function. Well, do I want to rewrite those? Absolutely not. So what I can do is I can import inventory management. Okay, now I have access to those functions, right? However, watch what happens. I'm going to just go ahead and print hello world. And run this. Let's run test, not inventory management. And look what happens. It's running the entire file for inventory management, including the call. So this is the call, which is going to end up running the whole program, all right? We don't really want that. That's not desirable. So we can actually protect against that by writing if name equals main. So we'll say if name equals main, then you can run. So what does that mean? Well, when you run a file directly, if I run this file right here directly, Python will change its name from inventory management.py to main, okay? And that makes it so that this function can run because this becomes true. However, if I run inventory management from test.py, its name is not main. Therefore, this is false, and this will never run. Okay? So let's go ahead and run this now. And you can see it's only printing hello world. Remember, when you import a file or a module, it's a module because it has functions in it. A module is a Python file with functions or classes in it. Okay? Now, when you import those, it runs the entire file. So that could be a problem, okay? What if I like to use this module to actually run this inventory management, but some of the functions I do want in this particular file that I created, which was test.py? Well, I'd have to put some protections into place, okay? So if name equals main, basically, let's just summarize it again. Python, when you run a file directly, changes the name to main, all right? That way, if you run this file, you import it in another file, it can't run the main function call here on line 26 because this is false. All right. Okay, so that clears that up. Hopefully, if you need a little more information on it, just go ahead and leave like a comment and I'll address it in another video. Okay, or you could Google it or whatever you want to do. And that will wrap up the lesson. So great job, and I will see you guys in the next one. Hey everybody, I hope you're ready for the next problem because we are going to be building an ATM and it needs to have the following functionality. We need to be able to withdraw, deposit, transfer, display balance, and we want to handle invalid input and insufficient funds errors. So we will be doing exception handling. Now, a quick note. We are not here to build the world's most performant and efficient code and algorithms. Okay, that's not what we're here for. We are here to creatively problem solve and start putting syntax together, okay? So there's going to be plenty of areas in this code that could be improved. And so what I would ask you to do is, after you're done building the program, go through it and find areas that you can improve. Oh, why did we do it this way? I have a better way. Or, hey, these 3 lines of code could be reduced down to 1. I want you to go in and I want you to improve it, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the database. The database is going to be a CSV file. Of course, we'd want to use a SQL file in real life, but CSV will do, all right? And the field names will be checking, savings, and PIN, and I want you to put them in that order, all right? Now, these numbers can be whatever you want, but they correspond with their above field names, okay? Now, similarly, you got to build the atm.py file, and these should both be in the same directory. Now, I'm going to approach this problem the same way that I approached inventory management. I know that I'm reading from a database and writing to a database, or in this case, kind of a file, all right? It's acting as a database. But do I want to open and close this database a million times? Well, I'm going to, but I don't want to have to write a context manager every single time and create a reader and then create a writer. That's redundant. That's repetitive. So I'm going to create 2 functions that do the work for me, okay? They'll do the work for all of the other functions. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by creating a function that opens the file. Now, you can call this whatever you want. Just don't use the open. Just don't use open because we already have a built-in function called open, and you don't want to overwrite that or else it won't work. This function won't work because we're going to use open. So we'll say with open, and we'll go ahead and open account.csv. We'll open it as read. And then we'll store it in F as F. Okay. Then next thing I want to do is create a reader. Okay. And I'm going to use the dict reader because I like the dict reader. And you can see it imports CSV for me. If your IDE doesn't do that, make sure you import CSV or you won't have access to the dict reader. Now, we got to pass in F. And now we have a reader object. Okay. Great. What we can do is iterate through this reader object and get the account. Now, this does work well. Obviously, this will get every single account, but we only have 1. So it's just going to give us a list of 1, or it's going to give us a dictionary, but we want to put that in a list, okay? So what we'll do is we'll say account details equals a list. We'll use a list comprehension here. We'll say we want the account for account in reader. Okay. Let's go ahead and just print the account details just to make sure it's working. So we'll print account details. Oops. We'll call the function. We'll run this, and it is working properly. Now, you could probably do this a better way just by grabbing the dictionary instead. I don't know. Maybe you can figure that out. Again, like I said, you can improve on this code after we're done with it. But I'm going to leave it in a list, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll use the write rows method, and I'll write the list when I'm going to update the file. And you'll see how that works, okay? I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves right here. So let's go ahead, and now that we have the account details, I think we need to address some stuff. Because there could be an issue where we can't find the database. What if the database doesn't exist? Or what if something happens to it and it's corrupted and we can't access it? Well, we're going to get a file not found error, okay? So let's go ahead and handle that. Let's say try. Okay, we'll tab all of this over. We'll accept the file not found error. and we'll say as E, okay? And then what do we want to do when we accept the file not found error? We want to raise the file not found error. That way we can pass it to our other functions so they can handle it, because they're going to have error handling too, all right? And you're going to see how that works. All right, so we'll raise the file not found error, and we actually have to put a message when we raise it. So we will say database not found, okay? Now, that's not the only error that can happen. And this isn't really even an error, but what if we open account.csv and we find the database, but all of the information is missing? That's a problem too, and that can break our other functions. So what we'll do is we'll create an error. We'll create a data error. Now, that doesn't exist. So we're going to create one, and then when this is empty, we'll raise that data error and pass it to the other function. So to do that, to create our own exception, what we do is we say class, then we call it what we want, which is going to be the data error. Now, there is a database error. I believe that's a part of a SQL module. We're not using SQL here, so we're not going to access it, but this will work anyways. And then we inherit from the exception class. So what we want to do is actually call the initializer method, okay? So we'll say init. Make sure you use init and not int, okay? And we can actually pass a message in, okay? So we'll say message, and we'll initialize it, equals message. Okay, and this will work. Make sure we have 2 blank lines. And what will happen is if this is empty, we will raise this data error and we'll pass a message. That message will be delivered to the function that calls this open file function. Again, you're going to see how that works, okay? So don't worry too much if you're not understanding everything. Again, you don't have to understand everything, right? You can understand, let's say 30%. Great. Come back, do it again. Now you understand another 20%. Well, now you're at 50% of understanding. Then you come back and do it again, and now you understand another 10 or 15%. So you can see how it adds up. As long as you're consistent and you keep doing things over and over again with a lot of practice, you'll start to understand. So what we want to say is, if the account details is empty, then we want to raise a data error. And what we would do to do that is just say if not account details. And what this is going to do is say, hey, is this empty? And if it is, it's actually going to look at it and say if it's false. If this is false, that means it's empty, which means this statement is true. Okay, so that means we can raise the data error and we'll pass a message. And we can say like, I don't know, account unavailable. And we'll put a V here. Okay. It's getting late. It's 3 in the morning. Okay. So I'm pretty tired. Now, what we want to do is handle, because that's going to handle the 2 errors. Okay. We don't want to go overboard. We could probably find a million errors to handle, but we want to just return the account details now because both errors are taken care of. So we're going to return account details. And that's it. This open file function is done and it should work perfectly for us. Now, we want to create the withdraw function. Let's do one thing at a time, right? So we'll start off with withdraw. And what we want to do is probably, let's create the write file function first. Let's do that first. So we're going to say def write file. And the file is going to need something to write to. It's going to need those account details. So we'll say account details. All right. And now we'll just use the context manager. Remember, we're going to open account details. We're account.csv, but we're going to open it as write. And then we'll store it in F. And then we want to create a writer. Okay. So we'll say writer equals CSV dot dict writer. And what we'll do is we'll pass an F and we want the field names. What are the field names going to be? Let's talk about this. We're going to be working with account details the whole time. And we can see what account details is. Look down here, it's a list. That means account details at the 0 index is the account, which means the keys for the 0 index are going to be our field names. Okay, so what I would do is say account details at the 0 index, which is the dictionary right here inside of the list, and then all of the keys, which is checking, savings, pin. So we can say dot keys. It's simple. Don't overthink that. Okay. Now that we have the writer, what we want to do is write the header. Okay. So we would say writer dot write header, and then we do writer dot write rows. Okay. And this is going to allow us to write an iterable, because remember, we're going to work with this list. We're going to pass account details around this whole program, and we know it's a list. Write rows accepts a list, which is going to be the account details. Okay. And then it will write the dictionaries inside of the list to the account.csv. Another thing we want to do is say new line equals an empty string. The reason we want to do that is because when we write to the file, it'll start creating spaces like this. It's really annoying. I don't like them. Okay. So we'll delete that. And this is actually fine. This should not have any errors. I mean, I'm sure we can find one, but I think we're fine with it just like this. And now we can start writing the withdraw function. So we'll say def withdraw. And withdraw will take no parameters. And why don't we first off open the file, right? Because we can't properly perform this function without knowing the account details. This is going to basically be in every single file. So we'll say open file. So we'll say open file. And what we'll do is we'll store that in account details. So we'll say account details equals open file. Okay. Now, why don't we just go ahead and print account details so you can see. I know you already know what it is, but we're just going to do it again. So we'll call the withdraw function. So when we call withdraw, the first thing that's going to do is open file is going to run. It's going to get the account details, which is a list, and it's going to just store it in this variable, account details. Then we'll just print it, and we should get the same exact thing as down here. So let's run it, and we do. So everything's working, all right? But when we're withdrawing, we don't really care about the pin. We're going to save the pin for the menu. The only thing that we care about is checkings and savings, okay? So I want to store those in variables. I'm going to say checking, comma, save. We'll do checking, comma, savings equals, and what we're doing is we're just doing multiple assignment up here. And we're going to say account details at the 0 index, again, which is the dictionary, checking. So we'll say checking. And then, comma, what we can do is copy and paste this and just change it to savings. So we'll say savings right here. All right. This should work. Now, there's something that we need to be aware of with this, but we'll go over that. We'll go over that soon, okay? In fact, I think what we can do is float these, right? Because we're going to be doing math on these. Let's just go ahead and let's go ahead and print checking and saving. So we can see, we're going to print type checking. Just do one. Let's call this function and see what we get. And you can see that this produces a string, okay? So these produce strings. We're storing 2 strings in checking and savings. That's not really useful to us when we're trying to do math on the account. So what we should do is convert these. So I'm going to say float. And then we'll do it with this too. We'll just say float. Now let's run this. And look what we get. It's been converted, and now we can do math. So that's going to be useful for us. Let's go ahead and delete this print statement. Let's ask them what account they want to withdraw from. So we'll say selection equals input. We'll say which account do you want to withdraw from? And then we'll say 1 checking space 2 period savings. And then we'll do a \n forward arrow colon space. And then what I'll do is I'll back this right up too. I'll do \n. And let's just see how it looks. This looks fine. Totally fine. Okay. And now what we'll do is we'll just analyze that selection. Oh, let's get the amount first, okay? We need to know how much they want to withdraw. So we'll say this is input. How much do you want to withdraw? Colon space. And this should be a float as well. And now we can analyze their selection. So we'll just say something like this. If selection equals 1. Now, there's something I want to show you. We're going to do something similar to enums. I don't want to go over enums. Maybe some of you know what it is. Maybe some of you don't. If you don't, go ahead and Google it. But we're going to do something similar where this isn't very clear. Like, this isn't clear at all. In fact, I'm going to create a class to clear this up. So it's a little bit, it's kind of like coding and self-commenting at the same time. So watch what I do here. This is really cool. I'm going to create a class up here. I'm going to say class account type. Okay. And actually, we're not going to inherit, so we don't need parentheses. And I'm going to create 2 class variables. So I'm going to say, let's make them all capital. Okay. To denote that they are constants. Now, there's no such thing as constants in Python. It's just convention, common convention, that we use uppercase. So we know that it shouldn't be changed. And we'll set checking to 1. And then we'll do the same thing for savings. We'll say 2. Okay, and now watch what I do here. Watch how much more clear this is. I can access this. I can create an account type object and then just say dot checking, and it will access these attributes or these class variables. So and it's a lot more clear. So I'm going to say account type dot checking. Okay. And now, if their selection is equal 1, it's the same thing. This is a little bit more clear. Okay, it's better to use this, especially when you're writing a lot of code. You want it to be as clear as possible and readable. Then we need to check their amount next, right? So we'll say if the amount is less than or equal to the checking, right? That's what we're worried about right now. We don't want them to overdraft. The amount can't be more than what they have. It can be equal or less than. And now we're going to move on again. So what should we do here? We're going to subtract it. We're going to subtract it, and then we're going to write the new details. So I'm going to say, now, I know some of you are probably thinking checking is equal to this index operator, and it's not. It's only equal to the value that this produces. If you want to directly change the dictionary, okay, the value from the dictionary, we still have to index in. So I'm going to take this, okay, and I'm going to pass this in, and I'm going to say it now equals checking minus amount. And then what we want to do is write the new account details. So we say write file, and we pass those account details in. And this should work. Let's go ahead and run this. And let's actually, I want to create an elif statement in case they try, or an else statement, because that means they have insufficient funds. So we'll print insufficient funds. Okay. It is getting late. 3:30. All right. So let's go ahead and run this. Let's try to deduct from the checking. So we'll say 1. How much do you want to withdraw? So we have 1,200 in the checking. Let's just try 1,400. And we have insufficient funds. This works perfectly. Now, let's try again with 900. Okay, it should have worked. It does. It works perfect. So we can literally take this code right here, and I can duplicate it. Okay, but I'll change this to savings now. Change everything to savings. Okay, this will get changed to savings. This is going to get changed to savings. And this is going to get changed. All right. And this should work for savings now. So let's go ahead and run it. Let's try savings. Let's put in 5,000. Okay, perfect. We'll run it one more time. Savings. And let's pass in 3,900. It looks like that worked, and there's only $100 left. So this is working. This is perfect. All right. Looks like our withdraw function is almost done. However, we want to handle the errors that this could throw. All right. So basically, it can throw two errors, which is a data error or a file not found error. But there's also another error we can encounter. And I'm gonna demonstrate right now. So let's go to checkings, right? And instead of saying like a number here, I'm going to write hi. And look, we have a value error. So we need to handle that. So we can actually handle all three errors by doing this. We can say try. We can grab this, tab it over, and then we can accept all three errors on one line. So we'll say accept. We have to put parentheses to accept multiple errors on the same line. So we'll say a data error, right? We have a file not found error. And we also have the value error that occurs if we don't put in a proper amount or a proper number for the amount input. So let's go ahead and put that in too. So we'll say value error. And we'll say as E. And we're going to verify that this works. And then we'll just print E. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and run this. Let's go ahead and try to handle the value error first. So we'll handle the value error. We'll say hi. Value error is handled. Fine. That's fine. What we'll do now is we'll try to cause an error up here. And I'm going to put account 1 because that doesn't exist, which means the file not found error should be raised. So let's go ahead and run this again. It raises it right away. This is perfect. Okay, so database not found. Now let's try to get the data error to occur by removing this so that the list is empty. Now let's run it. Account unavailable. Everything is working perfect. This is great. All right, I'm going to Control Z and we can move on because this is working good. All right, I think it's time to work on the deposit, right? So we'll say def deposit. Boy, I get so tired. I'm like falling asleep. So def deposit, trying not to fall asleep. And this is really simple, right? Because we don't have to verify that they have the money in their account. The only thing that we have to do is verify what they have in their account so that we can add to it. Because you know how the banks are. They're going to take your money. Although I've heard rumors these days where if you try to deposit an abnormal amount of money, they're like, oh, you got to come back. So I don't know. Anyways, banks they'll always take your money. So what we're going to do is we're going to still call the open function again, or the open file. All right. We'll store that in account details. And I think what we can do is take some of these. So what I'll do is I'll grab this. Okay. We'll say C, Control C, Control V. And yeah, we'll take both. We'll take these too. All right. And we'll just kind of rewrite the statements. So what we want to say is, what account do you want to deposit to? So we'll say deposit to checking or savings. How much do you want to deposit? Okay. And then we just check their selection. So we'll say if selection equals, remember we do account type dot checkings. Then what we'll do is we'll just let them deposit the money. Okay. What we'll say is we have to grab this. So we have to manually index in again. We have to do this every time. You have to manually index in. Will now equal checking plus amount. Okay. And then we write it. So we'll call the write file function and then we'll pass in the account details. All right. Terrific. And we can actually make this an elif, by the way. We'll just do elif here. We'll do elif. No, this is an if. Then we'll write an elif here. And I can just copy this. So Control C, enter down, paste. We'll change this to an elif just to get it out of the way, or I'll forget. Savings. So we'll say savings. This has to be changed to savings. And then savings plus amount. Okay. Let's go ahead and call this function. I think we're already done with this. Deposit's a little bit easy. So we'll run it. What account do you want to deposit to? Let's just say checking. How much do you want to deposit? Let's deposit like 90,000, right? We just won the jackpot. And let's go ahead and check our account. It's working. All right. Let's go ahead and run it again. Just try it out for savings. Let's do like 12,000. Check it out. Excellent. So this is working perfect. However, that doesn't mean that this still can't throw an error. And it doesn't mean that this can't throw an error. So we have to handle the same errors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, okay? Control C. I'm going to try this, okay? So try, tab this over, and paste in those same errors, okay? Deposit is done. Let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and move on. Now we want to do, what do we want to do next? Transfer. Okay, this one is a little bit tricky because we have to take from savings, move it to checkings, which means we add to checkings and subtract from savings at the same time. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say def transfer. Okay, and that won't require any parameters. And we're basically going to do like the same thing as this. So I'm going to copy this. I'm actually going to copy this and we can start to rewrite some of it. All right. So I'm going to paste this in. So what we're going to do is we're going to open the file. We get the details. What account do you want to transfer to? So we'll say transfer. Geez, I'm having a hard time tonight, huh? Transfer. 2. So if they want to transfer to checkings, we're going to take from their savings and move it over into their checking. Okay. So if the selection account type equals checkings, we have to check their savings. All right. We don't have to check their checking. So we're going to say if the amount is less than or equal to what they have in savings, then their checkings will increase. Okay. And then their savings will decrease. So I can just take this, Control C, paste it in, and then we write the details. Otherwise, yeah, they have insufficient funds. And then we'll do the same thing for this. But I'll take this right here, Control C. It means they're taking from their savings. So we want to do savings plus amount. It means they're taking from their checkings. So savings plus amount. Then we pass in, we take it from the checkings, and then we write to the file. I think this is already done. Let's go ahead and run this function and call it. So we'll say transfer, run. Let's say we want to transfer to checkings, means it's coming from savings. So we'll say 1. How much do you want to withdraw? Oh, we'll change that, but we'll do it after. So how much do you want to transfer basically is what's going on. And we're going to transfer from checkings. Let's transfer 12,000. So let's say 12. Let's try 13,000 first. Okay, insufficient funds. That works. And then we'll just change this real quick. All right, run it again. So trying to transfer too much works perfectly. Oh, we're going to have to change this as well. All right, let's run it. Let's do checking. Let's do 12,000, right? Because we have 12,100. That should leave $100 left in the savings. So let's just run this and see if it works. Awesome. It's working perfectly. All right. So let's go ahead and run this again. Let's go to savings now. And let's transfer like 50,000. And all right. Working perfectly. And it's going to handle all of the errors this transfer function has actually already done, okay? So a lot of times you can reuse code, all right? So don't be afraid to copy code and then just paste it in and change a few things up. So if transfer is done, then we can just take care of balance, right? So we'll say balance. And then what we want to do is just get the details again. We got to open up the file. So we'll say, let's take both of these, right? So Control C. We'll paste these in, right? And now we'll just print the checking. Let's make it look nice. So we'll print an F string that says you have a balance. So we'll say a balance of. And then we'll do something like this. Checking, a $, curly brackets. We'll pass checking in, and then we'll colon dot to F it. And then we'll do space, space, pipe symbol, space, space. Let's just do one space. And then we'll say savings. We'll put a $, curlies, and then we pass in savings, colon dot to F. And this should work. I'm going to try it out. So let's call the function balance, run it. Yep. Works perfect. All right. This is like done already. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to create a menu, right? So we'll just run a main. We'll run a main. So we'll say def main. And I want to kind of do something with a dictionary here. So what I want to do is I need to open the file again because there's something I need. I need the current pin. That requires me to open the file. So I'm going to say account details. Let's just say pin. Pin equals open file. We'll put a colon here. Actually, we don't need a colon. What am I doing? It's getting late. And what we'll do, let's just say account details again. We'll say account details equals open file. And then we'll just say the pin equals, we'll grab this, right? Paste it in. And we just change checking to pin. We'll say pin. And get rid of that extra space. Okay, so now we have their pin. But we're going to want to loop that, right? Because what if they put in the wrong pin? So what we can do is let's continue on for now. Let's map all of these functions. Okay, I'm going to show you like an easier way. Because what if you had a lot of options or a lot of functions? I'd want to map them instead of writing a whole bunch of if and elif statements. So I'm going to create a functions dictionary. Okay, and I'm going to map each one. So one will be mapped to withdraw. So we'll say withdraw. 2 will be mapped to deposit. 3 will be mapped to transfer. And make sure you don't put those parentheses. If you put parentheses in, the second you initialize this dictionary, it's going to start calling the function, the withdraw function. You don't want that, okay? 4 will be mapped to show balance. So we'll say balance. And I think that's good. That's good. And then what we can do is ask them. We can ask them. We'll make sure their pin is right. So if pin, we'll ask them to enter their pin. So we'll say entered pin equals input. We'll say enter. Why do I keep doing that? Enter your pin. And then we'll say if pin, we'll say if entered pin equals pin. Okay? That means they have the right pin, and that means we can start asking them what they want to do. So let's get some input. Let's create a selection equals input, and we'll say, let's put a print statement up here. Let's say, welcome to Coders Bank. We'll make it all caps. So we create the input statement. What would you like to do? Okay. And then we'll do a \n. And we can just enter down, actually. We're going to do 1.withdraw space 2.deposit. And then we'll do a \n again. And we'll hit enter. And we'll say 3.transfer. So space 4. We will balance. Okay, and let's make sure we get rid of that call. Then I'm going to actually put another \n. I'm going to say \n, enter, and I like my arrows, okay? All right, that should work. And what we want to do is we want to loop this. So we're going to say for underscore, because we don't want to just do a while true loop right now. So we're going to say for underscore in range. So we'll give them like, 30 loops, okay? Then we'll ask them for their selection. And then what we'll do is we'll just call what they do. So watch what we're going to do. We're going to evaluate their selection. We're going to say if selection equals, let's go ahead and put a 5 in here too. So I'm going to enter down. And I'm going to put double quotes. And I'm going to say 5, exit, \n. Okay. So if selection equals 5, we want to break the loop. So we'll do that. 5. And then we'll break the loop. So we'll say break. And then we'll say else. And we'll call the function by passing in the dictionary. So the dictionary is functions. And then we pass in the key. Okay, so they're going to pass in the key with their selection. So I can just put selection here. And then we call it. Just like that. This will work. Let's go ahead and try it out. Let's call main. Let's enter the pin. Let's just say it's 1, 2, 3, 4. What would you like to do? Let's just click on balance. And yeah, this is working. Okay, and then it loops back to the menu. What would you like to do? And what we should do is we should put the for loop above the entered pin. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to grab all of these. I'm going to shift tab them. I'm going to grab this for loop. Control exit. Pop it down. And then tab all of this over. Okay. So if entered pin, otherwise they have to enter their pin again. And then I'll grab their pin from up here. So Control X. All right, let's try running this. Let's just put in the wrong pin. Yep, that works perfect. Okay, and then we'll just put an else statement. We'll say else. We'll print wrong pin. All right, let's run it one more time. We'll say 3, 4, 5, 6, or 2, 3, 4, 5. Wrong pin. Let's put in the right pin. Okay, we get to withdraw, deposit, transfer, balance. And actually, this is going to work perfectly. The reason it's going to work perfectly is because when you go to an ATM, you have to enter your PIN every single time you want to do a transaction. Okay, so this actually is going to work perfect. And we'll just say we want to transfer 3. We want to transfer, let's say, 2 savings, which will come from checkings. Let's do 12,000. All right, and what happens is it actually transfers the 12,000, and then it goes right back to enter your PIN if you want to do another transaction. Now, what I want you guys to do, so this works. This is working great. What I want you guys to do is I want you to go through all of this code now that you're done with it, and I want you to find areas that you can improve. They are there. Trust me, they exist. All right? It's getting a little late for me. I think we're going to wrap it up. Terrific job, and I will see you in the next problem.